I can speak 7 languages. The room fell into a stunned hush. A murmur rippled through the air like a current. One of the board members leaned back in his chair, stifling a smirk. A pale boy sitting beside his crisply dressed mother scoffed audibly, but it was Principal Edwin Hargrave who reacted most severely. "You can what?" he said, as if the words themselves had offended him. Anna stood in her simple shoes, wearing a blue hand-me-down dress too formal for the Charleston heat. Her braids were neatly tied back, her hands clasped respectfully in front of her. Her skin, a warm shade of mahogany, caught the light from the stained glass window behind her. I said, "I can speak 7 languages." A beat of silence passed before laughter, soft and cruel, bubbled from the corner of the room. "7?" Hargrave repeated, stepping out from behind his polished mahogany desk. He glanced down at Anna's admissions folder, then back up at her with a look of disdain. "Is this some kind of joke?" "No, sir." "And where exactly does a child like you," his eyes narrowed, "learn 7 languages?" "My father," Anna began, then stopped. Not this time. Not the lie she used to tell herself. Not the story of a professor she never met. "My father is the night watchman here," she said. "He works the front gate." Someone in the room coughed loud, pointed. Another chuckled. Principal Hargrave snorted. "So, let me get this straight. The gatekeeper's daughter is fluent in 7 languages?" Anna said nothing. He turned to the admissions board. "We're wasting time." Then he looked back at her. His voice dropped to a low, cold register. "You do realize, young lady, that Whitestone Academy is the most respected private institution in Charleston. We've educated senators' sons, CEOs' daughters, even a few foreign diplomats." "I know that, sir." "Well, then let me be perfectly clear. Admitting you into this school would be a stain on its history, a smear, an embarrassment." Gasps didn't come this time, just the low, satisfied hum of people nodding to each other. "And why is that?" Anna asked quietly. "Because you are not like the others," Hargrave said. "You are not from our world, and let's not pretend we don't all see what's in front of us." Anna's fingers curled slightly. Her voice trembled, but not with fear. "Because I'm black," she said. A pause. "Because I'm poor." Hargrave's mouth twisted, but he didn't deny it. One of the women on the board finally spoke. "Really, Mr. Hargrave?" But he raised his hand. "Don't pretend to be surprised. The girl should be grateful we let her in the building." Anna took a deep breath. Her heart thundered. Her knees wanted to buckle. But she thought of her father's rough hands packing her lunch that morning, of her grandmother's fingers adjusting her hair ribbon, and she began. "Bonjour, je m'appelle Anna. J'ai 12 ans, et j'aime les langues." The smirks began to fade. "Hola, me llamo Anna. Aprendo idiomas porque me hacen sentir libre." Eyes widened. "Watashi wa Anna desu. Watashi wa Nihongo o manan de imasu." The air grew still. "Io sono Anna. Studio l'italiano ogni sera con mio padre. Anna nitwa. Najifunza Kiswahili kwa sababu lugha ni nguvu." "My Name ist Anna. Ich liebe Wörter." She finished in English, her voice steady. "I told you. I can speak 7 languages." If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear where you're watching from and what this moment meant to you. No one moved. No one laughed. Principal Hargrave's face had gone rigid, as if he'd swallowed something sharp. His hands fumbled for his handkerchief. I suppose we might consider," he began. But Anna cut him off. "I didn't come here to beg," she said. "I came to learn." The boy who had laughed now stared at his shoes. The woman who had coughed looked anywhere but at Anna, and the silence in the room was no longer doubt, it was shame. Outside, Anna's father leaned against the school gate, in his Navy security uniform, watching the doors with tired but proud eyes. When she stepped out, he straightened. "How'd it go, baby girl?" Anna smiled faintly, her ribbon catching the breeze. "They said I couldn't." "But you did." "Yes," she said, and they listened. They didn't hold hands walking back toward the old pickup truck, but they didn't have to. The silence between them was full of truth and something more powerful than any rejection, dignity. Later that evening, the sun dipped low over Charleston, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement outside the Johnson home, a modest duplex near the rail yards, where the walls were thin, the floorboards creaked, and the scent of fried cabbage lingered from the neighbor's kitchen. Inside, Anna sat at the small kitchen table, her backpack still on, her ribbon wilted from the day. Her father, Joseph Johnson, stirred a pot of grits on the stove. His security badge still clung to his shirt, and his boots left faint smudges of clay dust on the floor. "Eat something, baby," he said, not turning around. "You barely touched your lunch." "I wasn't hungry," Anna replied. Joseph glanced over his shoulder. "But now?" She shrugged. "A little." He set down a steaming bowl in front of her and placed a jar of molasses beside it. "Put a little of that on. It helps when the day's been bitter." Anna smiled weakly, but didn't move. Joseph sat across from her, resting his elbows on the worn tabletop. His hands were still dusty from pulling a stuck gate off its hinges that morning. "So," he said, "they heard you? They didn't want to, but I made them." Joseph's eyes gleamed with pride. "That's my girl." Anna stirred the grits absently. "They laughed at me." He nodded. "Folks laugh when they scared, or when they don't understand. They said letting me in would stain their school." His face tightened, jaw shifting slightly. "People got strange ideas of what's clean and what's dirty." Anna looked down. "He called me a stain, Daddy." There was a long pause. Then Joseph reached into his breast pocket and pulled out an old pocket knife, dull with age. "See this?" he said, laying it gently on the table. "This belonged to my daddy. He carried it every day working the shipyards." Anna nodded, familiar with the story. "He told me, you ain't gotta cut nobody with it. Just carry it. So you don't forget you come from men who built ships, not from stains." Anna traced a finger along the knife's surface. "Sometimes I wish I really had a special dad. You know, a professor or a senator or—" Joseph leaned in, cutting her off with just a look. "You got a special dad." She looked up. "I may not teach at a university, but I built my daughter a mind stronger than any ivory tower." Anna blinked quickly, her eyes stinging. "I know." He softened. "You don't have to prove anything to those folks." "But I want to," she said. "I want them to see. Not just me, but every kid who walks past that gate and thinks, that school ain't for me. I want them to know it can be." Joseph sat back, staring at his daughter like she was something carved from starlight. "Then they gonna learn today." That night, while the city hummed outside, Anna spread her notebooks across the table. French verbs, Japanese kanji, Swahili phrases. The words wrapped around her like armor. Her father fell asleep in his chair, boots still on, one hand resting on the open classified ads page, but Anna kept studying. The next morning, Whitestone Academy called. Joseph answered. He said very little, just nodded once, and then turned to Anna as she ate toast with butter and jelly. "You start Monday," he said. Anna paused mid-bite. "They said yes?" "They said they can't ignore what they saw." She grinned, but the smile quickly faded. "He won't make it easy for me." "No, he won't. But you don't need easy. You just need to remember who you are." Monday came like thunder. Whitestone's campus was pristine, with old oaks casting dappled shade over manicured lawns. Students in polished loafers and monogrammed blazers filed through stone archways, laughter echoing like wind chimes. Anna stepped off the bus in her second-hand shoes and thrifted skirt, clutching a backpack full of borrowed books and handwritten notes. Eyes followed her. A hush spread as she walked toward the main building. No one said hello. No one smiled. She found her homeroom, room 4C, and paused at the door. Then she stepped inside. 22 students sat in rows, perfectly aligned. Every desk gleamed. The teacher, Miss Whitaker, looked up and blinked at her as if someone had brought a ghost into the room. "You must be Anna Johnson." Miss Whitaker hesitated a second too long before pointing to the empty seat in the back. "Take a seat." As Anna moved through the aisle, she heard them, not loudly but loud enough. Is she really the gate guy's kid? Can she really talk all those languages? Maybe she's just a parrot. The words stuck like gum on the sole of a shoe, annoying, dirty, impossible to ignore. Miss Whitaker handed out copies of To Kill a Mockingbird. Anna opened to the first page and began reading quietly to herself. But her mind wasn't in Macomb County, it was inside that admissions office, standing tall while the world tried to shrink her. At lunch, she sat alone. No one offered a seat. No one asked her name. Her peanut butter sandwich tasted like cardboard. Then, just as she was packing up to leave, a girl with auburn hair and braces sat across from her. "You really speak 7 languages?" she asked. Anna looked up. Yes. The girl shrugged. Cool. I can barely pass English. And just like that, the wall cracked, if only slightly. That night, Joseph waited up for her. How was it? Tough, she said. You okay? I will be. He smiled. That's my girl. She went to bed with her books beside her pillow, the knife under her mattress, and the fire in her chest still burning strong. She had stepped through the gate, and now, there was no turning back. By Wednesday, the whispers had grown teeth. Anna walked the halls of Whitestone Academy with a kind of practiced calm, chin high, books tight to her chest, eyes ahead, but each step was heavier than the last. Every corner held a murmur, every classroom, a stare. She wasn't just the new girl anymore. She was that girl, the gatekeeper's daughter, the girl who made the principal squirm, the girl who dared speak back. In algebra, 2 boys passed a note across her desk. She didn't read it, but she saw the word mudblood scrawled on the front, a slur borrowed from fantasy, aimed straight at her reality. She tore it in half without a word and kept solving the equation. In history, the teacher skipped over her hand even when it was the only one raised. And at lunch, the table where the auburn-haired girl had sat with her on Monday now had a new sign, reserved. Anna didn't bother asking who it was for. She ate beneath the magnolia tree instead, just past the football field, where no one went unless they were hiding. She didn't cry. She had promised herself she wouldn't. That Friday, Principal Hargrave summoned her to his office. She stepped in to find him standing at the window, hands behind his back, watching the grounds as if he were inspecting troops. Miss Johnson, he said without turning, I've received some feedback. Anna didn't move. About what? He turned slowly. About your presence here. It's causing disruption. I haven't broken any rules. No, but you've certainly upset the balance. Anna narrowed her eyes. The balance? This school functions best when students know their place, when everyone understands expectations. You, unfortunately, continue to challenge that structure. With respect, sir, Anna said. Isn't that what learning is supposed to do? Hargrave's expression hardened. This isn't a debate club, Miss Johnson. It's an institution of discipline and heritage, and intelligence doesn't belong here if it's not dressed in the right uniform. He smiled thinly. You're clever, that's clear, but cleverness doesn't equal belonging. Anna's fists clenched at her sides. Are you threatening to expel me? Of course not, he said, voice smooth as oil. But let's not pretend we didn't already stretch the rules to let you in. She stared at him. I earned my place. Maybe, but don't expect everyone else to agree. He turned back to the window. You're dismissed. Outside the office, Anna exhaled slowly. Her heart pounded, her palms slick with sweat. The walls of Whitestone didn't want her. They never had. That afternoon, during language lab, Miss Whitaker announced a new assignment, a paired project on global cultures. Each student was to choose a country, study its customs and language, and present in class in both English and the country's native tongue. Anna's heart soared. Finally, a chance to speak, to show what she could do. She smiled, raised her hand, but Miss Whitaker didn't look her way. Partners will be assigned, the teacher said curtly, then began calling out names. Ethan and Olivia, Marcus and Caleb, Emily and Jackson. Anna waited. At the end of the list, Miss Whitaker hesitated. And Anna, you'll be working alone. A few students chuckled. Anna nodded slowly. May I choose any country? I suppose, Miss Whitaker said. As long as your pronunciation is authentic. Anna caught the edge in her voice, but she smiled anyway. I'll present in Swahili. The room went quiet. Later that night, she sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by open notebooks and index cards. Her father worked a double shift and wouldn't be home until morning. The house was quiet except for the hum of the old refrigerator and the occasional bark from a dog down the block. Anna read aloud. Jina langu ni Anna, nimefurahi kuzungumza nanyi leo. My name is Anna. I'm happy to speak with you today. She practiced again and again. Her accent tightened. Her voice grew stronger. But somewhere around midnight, she paused. She looked around the small kitchen, the cracked linoleum floors, the photos of her grandmother in her Sunday best on the wall, and suddenly, a lump rose in her throat. "Why am I the only one who has to prove everything?" she whispered. There was no answer, just the sound of her own breath and the ticking of the clock. The following Monday, she stood before her class, alone at the front. Her voice rang clear. Her posture was perfect. She didn't fumble. She didn't stutter. "Gina langni Anna." And as she finished the final sentence, silence followed. It wasn't mockery this time. It wasn't laughter. It was stillness. Then, somewhere in the middle of the room, a single pair of hands clapped. Then another, and another. Miss Whitaker didn't join in, but she didn't stop it either. Anna met the teacher's eyes. There was no smile, but there was a flicker, just a flicker of something like recognition. That afternoon, as she walked home under the soft gold light of late September, Anna realized something. The walls of Whitestone were high, but her voice was louder, and if she kept speaking long enough, they'd have no choice but to listen. On Tuesday morning, something strange happened. Anna walked into room 4C and found a folded piece of paper on her desk. It wasn't scribbled in pencil or stained with cafeteria ketchup like the others she'd received before. This one was carefully creased, written in clean cursive, and sealed with a single strip of blue tape. She hesitated. The class hadn't settled yet. Miss Whitaker stood near the board, sipping coffee and pretending not to watch. Students milled around, chatting, laughing, shifting backpacks. Anna opened the letter slowly, bracing herself. But what she read was not what she expected. "You were amazing yesterday. I didn't even know Swahili was a real language. I hope you do more. Don't stop talking. E." Just one initial. No name, no signature. She glanced around the room. No one looked her way. Everyone seemed locked in their own teenage conversations about volleyball practice, math quizzes, and who was bringing what to the fall fundraiser. Anna folded the note and slipped it into her book. Something had shifted. That day at lunch, she returned to her usual spot under the magnolia tree. But before she could sit, 2 footsteps approached. It was the girl with auburn hair and braces, the same one who'd shared a seat with her briefly on the first day. "Mind if I sit?" the girl asked. Anna blinked. "No, go ahead." They ate in quiet at first. Anna bit into her apple, while the girl unwrapped a ham sandwich and took small, neat bites. "I'm Ellie," she said at last. "I know," Anna said, then softened. "I mean, I remember from the roster." Ellie grinned. "You're Anna, the girl who speaks everything." Anna smirked. "Not everything, just 7. Well, it's more than me. I can barely pronounce croissant." That made Anna laugh, a small, genuine laugh that warmed the edge of her guarded heart. For the first time, the lunch hour didn't feel like exile. Later that week, Miss Whitaker announced the school's annual Founders' Day speech contest, a tradition dating back to 1897. Students were invited to submit a written speech on the role of honor in modern education. The winner would deliver their speech to the entire student body, staff, and school board during the formal ceremony in the Whitestone Auditorium. The room buzzed with interest. It was a big deal. Scholarships had been handed out in past years. News outlets sometimes covered it. And students who won were usually legacy kids, polished, prepped, politically groomed. Anna didn't raise her hand. She didn't speak. But the idea burrowed deep into her mind, refusing to leave. That night, at the kitchen table, she sat staring at a blank page. "What's that?" Joseph asked, walking in from his shift. He hung up his jacket, brushed the dust from his sleeves, and poured himself a glass of iced tea. "Speech contest," Anna said. Joseph raised an eyebrow. "You thinking of entering?" "I'm thinking of thinking." He chuckled. "That means yes." Anna didn't smile. "They don't want someone like me on that stage." He sat across from her. "Maybe not, but that's exactly why you need to stand there." She hesitated, then began scribbling. Words poured out slowly, hesitantly at first, then stronger. She wrote about honor, not the kind found in school mottos or family crests, but the kind found in telling the truth, even when no one wants to hear it. She wrote about showing up, about being underestimated, about what it means to belong when the world tells you not to. She didn't sleep much that night. By morning, the speech was done. She handed it to Miss Whitaker quietly, with no fanfare. The teacher looked surprised. "I'll review it," she said. Submissions close Friday. Thank you, Anna said, then returned to her seat. By Thursday, word had spread that Anna had submitted. A few students snickered in the hallway. One whispered, "They're gonna let the janitor's kid speak next?" Anna ignored them, but deep down, her stomach turned. On Friday morning, Miss Whitaker handed back the printed list of accepted entries. Anna scanned the page. Names filled the paper: Olivia Harris, Jackson Lee, Caleb Thornhill. She reached the bottom. There it was. Anna Johnson, the quiet kind of honor. She stared at the words, not breathing for a full 10 seconds. "You're in?" Ellie whispered behind her. Anna nodded. Miss Whitaker cleared her throat. "The speech will be held next Wednesday at 10 a.m. in the auditorium. All students are required to attend. Presenters will be evaluated by a panel from the board." That evening, Joseph came home to find Anna pacing in the living room. "You okay?" "I got in." He set down his lunchbox. "Course you did. I'll be speaking in front of everyone." Joseph pulled out his phone and started typing. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Texting your grandma. She's gonna want to iron your best dress." Anna shook her head. "I don't want to make it a big deal." "Baby girl," Joseph said, standing. "It is a big deal." She looked at him, his tired eyes, his rough hands, the pride that lit his face brighter than the kitchen lamp. And in that moment, she didn't feel like the gatekeeper's daughter. She felt like someone who belonged. Next week, she would walk onto that stage, not because they had made space for her, but because she had claimed it. The morning of the speech arrived, cloaked in nerves and October fog. Anna stood in front of the mirror in the hallway, smoothing the hem of her navy blue dress. Her grandmother had pressed it the night before, humming old hymns under her breath. Her father, now dressed in his security uniform, stood nearby, watching with quiet pride. "You got this, baby girl," Joseph said, adjusting her collar. "Remember, stand tall, speak slow, don't let your knees shake." Anna smiled nervously. "What if they boo me?" "Then boo right back," he said with a wink. "With words." They shared a brief hug. Then she grabbed her speech, tucked carefully into a manila folder, and headed out the door. Whitestone Academy's auditorium had never been fuller. Rows of students in clean uniforms filled the cushioned seats. Teachers, staff, even a few board members were scattered among them. The stage was lit with soft amber light, framed by velvet curtains and the school's ornate crest hanging above like a crown. Anna stood backstage, waiting her turn, her hands trembling slightly. She could hear the muffled voice of the current speaker, a boy named Caleb Thornhill, delivering a speech that used words like heritage, legacy, and institutional pride, with the confidence of someone who had never once been told they didn't belong. Ellie appeared beside her, out of breath, holding a small paper bag. "Banana," she whispered, "for the nerves." Anna blinked. "You brought me a banana?" "My mom says it helps with public speaking. Something about potassium. I don't know. Just take it." Anna laughed softly and took a bite. The applause for Caleb was polite but long. Then came the announcement. Our final speaker today is Anna Johnson, with her speech entitled, "The Quiet Kind of Honor." The air in the auditorium shifted. Anna walked out into the light. She paused at the podium. Her eyes scanned the crowd, so many eyes, some curious, some skeptical, a few blank. And in the far back, just near the exit, stood her father, still in uniform, cap in hand. She took a breath and began. When people speak of honor in schools like this one, they often think of plaques, trophies, old paintings of men with stern faces and polished shoes. But I've come to believe that honor is quieter than that. Her voice was steady, stronger than she expected. Honor is getting up every morning to walk into a room where no one wants you. It's doing your work when no one calls on you. It's learning not to shrink when they whisper behind your back. A ripple moved through the room. "Honor," she continued, "is what my father shows when he fixes gates no one notices, when he opens doors that others walk through without a second thought. He taught me that dignity doesn't come from titles. It comes from knowing who you are." She glanced toward Hargrave in the front row. His arms were crossed, face unreadable. "This school wasn't built for someone like me. The stage was never meant to hold my voice. But here I am, not because I was given a place, but because I refused to leave quietly." There was a pause, a thick, waiting silence. Then she closed her speech. "And if honor means anything today, let it mean this. that the quietest student can carry the loudest truth, and that we are not stains on the fabric, we are threads, strong ones, that hold history together. Silence, and then applause. It started slow, scattered, but then it grew. A girl in the third row stood, then another, and another. Even some teachers clapped. Even Miss Whitaker, though only briefly. Principal Hargrave didn't move. But Joseph, at the back of the room, clapped with both hands, proud and loud. Afterward, backstage, Anna sat down on a folding chair and let her shoulders drop. Ellie appeared beside her again, still holding the now empty banana bag. "You nailed it," she said. Anna looked up. "You think so?" "You didn't just speak," Ellie said. "You made them listen." Just then, Miss Whitaker entered the green room, her expression unreadable. "I wanted to tell you," she said. "Your speech will be printed in next month's alumni journal." Anna blinked. "Really?" "It was. Honest," the teacher said. "That takes courage." Anna nodded, unsure what to say. "And," Miss Whitaker added, more quietly, "not everyone here will like you. But after today, no one will be able to say, you don't belong." That night, back home, Anna placed the speech beside her dictionary and closed her eyes. The stage may never have been built for her, but she had claimed it, and she wasn't leaving. By Monday morning, the glow of Anna's triumphant speech had already started to dim. The applause was still a warm echo in her mind, but the mood in the halls of Whitestone Academy had turned colder, quieter, more calculated. It started with whispers again, sharper this time. Not the curious kind, but the kind dipped in poison. She made the whole thing about herself. Her daddy's a janitor, right? What's honorable about that? She played the race card. That's how she got on stage. Anna heard them, every word, but she didn't flinch. She had promised herself that once she spoke, she would not retreat. Still, the atmosphere had changed. Even in class, something was different. Miss Whitaker was more curt than usual. When Anna raised her hand, she was overlooked. During group work, her name was left off assignments, forcing her to complete sections alone. And when she walked into the cafeteria, the same kids who had clapped now avoided eye contact. Only Ellie remained. At lunch, they sat under the magnolia tree, as they always did. Ellie picked at her salad, her brows furrowed. "They're talking about you," she finally said. "I know," Anna replied. "I don't get it. You were amazing. They think I took something that didn't belong to me. But it was a contest. You earned it." Anna took a deep breath, eyes fixed on the rustling branches above. "That doesn't matter to them. What matters is that someone like me wasn't supposed to win. Not in front of the board, not in front of Hargrave." Ellie looked away. "He didn't clap, you know. I watched. I noticed." That afternoon, Anna was summoned once again to the principal's office. She stepped inside with her back straight, gripping her notebook tight to her side. Hargrave was seated behind his desk, a stack of letters beside him. He didn't look up as she entered. "Close the door," he said flatly. She did. He tapped one of the envelopes. "These are complaints. From parents, donors, alumni." Anna said nothing. "They believe your speech was inappropriate, political, a disruption." It was honest. "That's your opinion. It's also true." Hargrave finally looked at her. "You're a clever girl, Miss Johnson, but cleverness can be dangerous." Anna stepped forward. "Are you saying I broke a rule?" "Number, but not all damage is done with rule breaking." She met his eyes. "Do you want me to apologize?" He folded his hands. "I want you to think carefully about what kind of attention you're bringing on yourself and on this institution." Anna tilted her head. "You mean I should stay quiet now?" "La. I mean," he said slowly, "that your place here is still conditional." A beat passed. Anna's heart thudded, but her voice remained calm. "I understand." "Good. You're dismissed." She left, teeth clenched, palms sweating. She didn't cry. Not yet. That night, she sat at the kitchen table with her father. He was sorting through unpaid bills, his brow heavy with fatigue. She didn't want to worry him. But the silence in her chest was too loud. "They're trying to make me disappear," she said. Joseph looked up. "Who?" "Hargrave. The board. Everyone who thinks I don't belong." He leaned back, slowly setting the bills aside. "You want to disappear?" "Number." "Then don't." She met his eyes. You didn't stand up there to get their approval, he said. You stood because the truth needed to be heard. But they're threatening to take my place away, then make it impossible for them to take it. Anna frowned. How? Be undeniable. Not loud, not flashy, just undeniable. Work harder, show more, every day. Anna stared at the table, her mind swirling. Even if they'll never accept me? Joseph reached for her hand. You're not here to be accepted. You're here to learn, to grow, and maybe to open the gate for the next kid behind you. She didn't speak for a while. But the quiet between them was steady, like an oath. The next morning, Anna arrived at school before the bell rang. She went straight to the library, checking out 3 books on historical rhetoric, public speaking, and political resistance. By lunch, she had already outlined her next essay. By the end of the day, she had submitted a research proposal to the student journal. She started tutoring 3 younger students in French after school. She helped clean the language lab. She corrected the teacher's pronunciation of a Swahili phrase gently, without condescension. Her days grew fuller, busier, sharper, and slowly, the tide began to shift again. By the end of the week, one of the younger boys she tutored shyly handed her a thank you note, scrawled in blue crayon. Miss Whitaker gave her a subtle nod after a classroom discussion. Even the lunchroom whispers grew quieter, not gone, but dimmed. She hadn't shouted. She hadn't fought. She had become undeniable. And in doing so, she turned the backlash into something else entirely. Fuel. November came with rain and early twilight. The leaves on the great oaks around Whitestone Academy turned brittle and copper-colored, drifting down like time itself was shedding something old. Anna walked through the halls with her books pressed tight to her chest, and her voice quieter now, but firmer. It was no longer the loudness of defiance that carried her. It was the weight of purpose. One morning, as she arrived early to the library, she found something unexpected, taped to the door of the student council office, where announcements were posted. A flyer for the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. The title itself was unusual. Whitestone had never acknowledged such things before. The small print read, "Seeking new student representatives to help shape policy and school culture, open to all years." Ellie appeared beside her, holding 2 cups of coffee. You thinking about it? She asked. Anna scanned the flyer again. It feels like a trap. Or a door, Ellie said. Maybe one you kicked open without realizing. Anna didn't respond right away. But later that day, between tutoring sessions and drafting another article for the student journal, she filled out the application. She submitted it quietly, without telling anyone, not even her father. A week later, Principal Hargrave called her to his office again. She walked in, composed and ready. To her surprise, he wasn't alone. Mrs. Rivera, the vice principal, sat beside him, clipboard in hand, lips pressed tight. Her presence added a tension to the room that even Hargrave seemed to acknowledge. "Miss Johnson," Hargrave said, motioning to the seat across from them, "we've reviewed your request to join the committee." Anna nodded slowly. It wasn't a request. It was an application. "Yes," he said, clasping his hands. "Be that as it may, this committee is new, still forming. It's sensitive." "I understand," Anna said. "Some of the board members have expressed concern," Hargrave continued. "They fear it may stir unnecessary conflict." "Conflict," Anna echoed. "Or reflection?" Hargrave's jaw tightened. Mrs. Rivera broke in. "I believe, Principal Hargrave, that a student like Anna may bring valuable insight to the group, particularly if the school truly wishes to make progress." Hargrave shot her a look, but said nothing. Anna sat still, watching them both. Then she said, "If this committee is just for appearances, I'm not interested. But if it's meant to be real, meant to actually change something, I want in." Another silence. Then Hargrave leaned back. "We'll allow your participation, but with discretion. No speeches, no newsletters. Keep it internal." Anna stood. "I'll be respectful, but I won't be silent." As she left the room, she passed a teacher outside who avoided her eyes. It didn't matter. Another crack had appeared in the wall. The first committee meeting was held in a small, unused art room in the north wing of the school. Only 5 students showed up, 2 seniors, 1 sophomore, Ellie, and Anna. Mrs. Rivera facilitated. The conversation began cautiously, comments about textbook diversity, classroom discussion policies, but then Anna spoke. She told them about the names she was called her first week, about being told she didn't belong, about the speech, and the silence that followed. The others listened, and for the first time, she wasn't explaining herself, she was laying bricks, foundations. After the meeting, one of the seniors, a girl named Simone, came up to her. "I saw your speech," she said. "I didn't clap. I should've, but I didn't." "Anna met her Chaze," Simone added. "I want to help now." The next few weeks moved quickly. The committee began drafting a proposal, revised inclusion language in the student handbook, anonymous reporting systems for racial harassment, optional cultural electives. It was ambitious, messy, and no one expected it to go far. But Anna knew better. She brought in research from neighboring schools. She met with teachers after hours. She even convinced the janitor staff, her father's friends, to sign a letter of support. Still, not everyone was thrilled. One afternoon, as she opened her locker, she found another note. "This one not kind. You'll never be one of us. Keep pretending." She held it for a moment. Then, without emotion, crumpled it and threw it away. That night, Joseph found her asleep at the table, a stack of proposals beneath her cheek. He placed a blanket over her shoulders and didn't say a word. The day the committee presented their proposal to the board, Anna wore her pressed navy dress again. Her father sat in the audience, in uniform, next to Ellie's mother. Mrs. Rivera introduced them. Simone led the presentation. And when it was Anna's turn, she walked to the podium with calm clarity. "We aren't asking to change the history of this school," she said. "We're asking to make room for more stories." There were murmurs in the crowd, a few skeptical stares. Hargrave didn't blink. "But if Whitestone teaches honor," Anna continued, "then honor must include truth, and truth is we haven't been listening." Her voice didn't waver. "We are here. We've always been here. It's time the walls reflected that." When she stepped down, the silence was thick, but it was a different kind of silence now, the kind that comes right before something begins. Thanksgiving break arrived, and with it, a brief pause from the heavy stares and colder shoulders. Anna spent the holiday in their small kitchen, helping Joseph stir cranberry sauce and fry chicken instead of turkey. It was just the two of them, seated at a second-hand table with mismatched chairs and the news playing low on a dusty television in the corner. They didn't speak much about school. Joseph knew better than to press. But as they ate, he reached across the table, squeezed her hand, and said simply, "Proud of you, no matter what they say." Anna smiled. It was enough. When classes resumed, the weather turned bitter. Frost rimmed the windows of Whitestone Academy, and students hurried from building to building in coats too expensive for the cold to matter. Anna returned to her routines with quiet precision: committee meetings, tutoring, essays. She no longer looked for approval. She had stopped waiting for someone to open doors. She was too busy building her own. But it didn't go unnoticed. On the second Wednesday of December, a letter arrived in her locker, tucked neatly in an envelope, addressed in bold, slanted handwriting. She opened it carefully. "Miss Johnson, we are pleased to inform you that you have been selected to receive the inaugural Whitestone Civic Voice Award in recognition of your leadership, courage, and commitment to educational progress." Below that, typed in smaller letters, "You are invited to attend the Honors Assembly on the 18th of December, where you will be formally recognized." Anna stared at it, reading it twice. Then again, an award, not from the students, not from a rogue teacher, but from the school itself, the same school that, 3 months earlier, nearly turned her away at the gates. She didn't cry, but she did sit for a moment, just breathing. Later, in the courtyard, Ellie grinned when she saw the envelope. "I heard already," she said. "The teachers are buzzing." "I didn't expect this," Anna said quietly. "Maybe you didn't need to," Ellie replied. "Maybe they finally had no choice." But good news at Whitestone was never left untouched. That week, a post began circulating online, an anonymous blog accusing Anna of being given special treatment, claiming her father's job had earned her sympathy points, and that the award was a ploy to appease modern politics. It spread fast, too fast. Screenshots made their way into classrooms. Students whispered again, only this time more viciously. "She's just lucky. Everything's about race now." She tripped the board. Anna saw the comments. She read every one of them. Not because she wanted to, but because she needed to know the shadows that still followed her. In class, she said less. Her essays became sharper, more exact. Her posture never slouched, but her eyes were tired. At lunch, even Ellie hesitated. Do you want to say something? A post? A response? Anna shook her head. If they've already decided what I am, no amount of explaining will change that. But it's not fair. No, Anna said, but it's real. Friday came. The whispers hadn't died down. If anything, they thickened like fog that refused to lift. That afternoon, she walked past the administration office and saw Mrs. Rivera in a tense conversation with Hargrave, unopposed, then turned, knocked once, and entered. Both administrators looked up. I assume you've seen the blog, Anna said calmly. Hargrave straightened his tie. It's under review. Mrs. Rivera said, more gently, it's deeply inappropriate. We're working on tracing the source. I don't want it taken down, Anna said. I want it addressed. Hargrave frowned. In what sense? Let the board make a statement, not just about me, but about the climate here, about the bullying, the silence. That's a slippery slope, Miss Johnson. No, she replied. It's a clear one. Either you stand for something, or you don't. Mrs. Rivera met her eyes and gave the faintest nod. Let me speak with the others. Anna left the office knowing she had pushed a line. But it was the same line that had always existed, just more visible now. The following Monday, a printed bulletin was distributed in homerooms. Simple, direct. The Whitestone Board of Trustees unequivocally condemns personal attacks against any student based on background, family status, or race. Discourse is welcome. Harassment is not. All students deserve safety and respect. It wasn't perfect. It didn't name her directly, but it was a start. At the honors assembly, Anna sat in the front row, wearing the same pressed navy blue dress. Joseph sat behind her, dressed in his best jacket and freshly shined shoes. His name wasn't printed in the program, but Anna had made sure there was a seat for him. When her name was called, the applause was louder than she expected. Some clapped out of politeness, some because they meant it, but all clapped. She walked across the stage without trembling. Principal Hargrave handed her the plaque. Congratulations, Miss Johnson. She looked him in the eye. Thank you, she said, for following through. He nodded once, tight-lipped, but it was enough. She stood at the podium for a brief moment, not to speak, just to receive. She scanned the room. There were faces still blank, still unsure, still hesitant. But there were others now, faces she had never spoken to, nodding, watching, open. As she stepped down from the stage, plaque in hand, Ellie whispered, "How does it feel?" Anna smiled, small but real. Like an echo, she said, "Han hecho?" "Yeah," Anna whispered back, "because it's finally starting to bounce back." The new year at Whitestone Academy began not with celebration but with unease. January's cold settled in like a warning. Snow powdered the wrought iron gates. Radiators clanked in protest against the chill. Students returned from break in thick coats and quieter spirits. But for Anna, the air wasn't cold enough to quiet what had begun. In the weeks following the assembly, changes started to ripple beneath the surface. Some were subtle, a smile from a teacher who once barely acknowledged her, a student nodding in the hall instead of looking away. Others were more concrete. The Diversity and Inclusion Committee, once a mere footnote, was now listed on the official school bulletin board. Its proposals, once ignored, were now being reviewed by department heads. Anna kept her head down, but her eyes open. Still, resistance didn't fade. It adapted. It came in new forms. Delays in approvals, sudden schedule changes that interfered with committee meetings, forms misplaced. When the proposal for an optional African American history elective was brought forward, it was returned without comment. Twice. One afternoon, Ellie burst into the library, face flushed. "You need to see this." Anna followed her into an empty classroom. On her phone screen, a leaked staff chat thread was spreading online. Screenshots, sarcastic comments from teachers, some laughing about social justice babysitting, others mocking the plaque princess. One comment read, "Maybe the janitor's kid should focus on mopping, not mentoring." Anna read it in silence. "They're scared," Ellie said. "That's all this is." Anna turned the phone off. Then they should be. That evening, she said little at dinner. Joseph noticed. You all right, baby girl? They're not just students this time. It's staff. Joseph set down his fork. They're teachers. Doesn't make them right. They're trying to make me small again. Joseph reached over, placed his hand gently over hers. Let them try. Anna met his eyes. You know what small people hate most? He asked. What? When the thing they tried to bury grows taller than they ever imagined. The next morning, Anna went straight to Mrs. Rivera's office. She placed the printed screenshots on the desk. Rivera read them carefully, her face darkening. I assume you know this isn't official school communication, she said. But they're teachers. I know, and I'll bring it to the board. Anna hesitated. What will they do? Rivera sighed. They'll discuss. They'll form a subcommittee, maybe issue a statement. That's not enough. Then what do you want? I want the students to know the truth, Anna said. Not the gossip, not the slander, the truth. Rivera studied her for a long time. Are you prepared for what might come of that? I've already lived it. Later that week, Anna requested an assembly not as an honoree, but as a speaker. She didn't ask for permission. She submitted a petition, signed by over 100 students. Rivera approved it. Hargrave did not. But by then, it didn't matter. The auditorium was half full when Anna took the stage. Some came out of curiosity. Some came to support. Some came to see her fail. She stood at the podium with a single sheet of paper. Whitestone teaches us to value honor, discipline, and truth, she began. But those values mean nothing if we only protect them when it's convenient. She paused, let her eyes sweep across the room. In the past month, I've been praised publicly and mocked privately. I've been awarded and attacked, and I've realized something important. What scares people most is not the noise, it's the clarity. She held up the printouts of the leaked messages. These are not rumors. These are the words of the people who are meant to teach us. And I am not here to punish them. I am here to remind us that silence is not safety, it is complicity. Someone coughed in the audience. Another leaned forward. When we choose to ignore prejudice, we become its echo. And Whitestone deserves better than that. We all do. The silence afterward wasn't heavy. It was charged. She stepped off stage and didn't look back. The fallout came fast. That evening, the screenshots hit the local news. One teacher quietly resigned. Another issued a public apology. A third was placed on leave. Hargrave, under pressure, released a formal statement condemning divisive rhetoric among staff. For the first time in the school's modern history, Whitestone was being forced to look in the mirror. But it wasn't revenge Anna felt. It was justice, clear and cold and necessary. That night, she sat with Joseph in the living room. They watched the news coverage, her face blurred, her name mentioned with cautious respect. You've shaken the tree, he said. She nodded. Let's hope something good falls from it. Outside, snow fell silently across the school's roof. Inside, a girl who had once been told she didn't belong had now become its conscience. And the echo of her voice was still ringing. February arrived with a brittle sun and a wind that never quite left the bones. Whitestone Academy stood unchanged in its grand architecture, pillars and marble, polished floors and echoes of old money, but something beneath its surface had shifted. The faculty lounge was quieter now. The students whispered less, or at least whispered differently. Some whispers carried curiosity, others, respect, and though the halls still bore traces of cold glances and closed doors, Anna could feel it. The weight of her presence had grown. She was no longer just visible. She was undeniable, but there was one space that hadn't changed. The portrait hall. It was an ornate corridor that led to the main library, lined with towering oil paintings of Whitestone's founders, major donors, and former headmasters. All white, all men, all stern. Students were taught to walk through it with reverence. No loitering, no laughter, no questioning. Anna had avoided it for months. One morning, as snow gathered lightly outside the windows, she stopped at the entrance. Ellie stood beside her, sipping tea from a thermos. You never go in here, Ellie said. Because it doesn't see me, Anna replied. But you see it. Anna nodded slowly, then stepped inside. Each portrait stared down with cold eyes, heavy in their frames. Each plaque bore a date, a title, a legacy. But nowhere in this hall was there any sign of the students who scrubbed its floors, the staff who opened its doors, or the children who dared to dream beyond its walls. And certainly not the daughter of a janitor who spoke 7 languages. She stopped in front of the oldest painting, George Whitestone himself, founder of the Academy, frozen in oil and arrogance. "I wonder," she murmured, "how many voices had to be silenced so he could hang here undisturbed." Ellie didn't reply. She didn't need to. That afternoon, in committee, Anna raised a new motion to create a new wing of the portrait hall, one dedicated to unsung heroes of Whitestone history. Not just headmasters, but maintenance workers, cafeteria staff, students who had broken barriers. A new kind of legacy, she said, one that doesn't need a trust fund to be remembered. The vote was split. Simone supported her. Ellie, of course. But a few others hesitated. "Isn't that symbolic?" asked one. "It won't fix policies or funding." "No," Anna replied, "but symbols matter. So do walls. What we choose to hang on them matters." The proposal moved forward, barely. But when it reached the administration, the resistance was immediate. Mrs. Whitaker pulled her aside. "You're pushing too hard." "I'm pushing just enough," Anna said. "People are already watching you closely. Then let them see everything." Word of the proposal spread. Some students mocked it, calling it the janitor's hall. Others said it was performative. But Anna ignored the noise. She drafted names, wrote biographies, collected photos. She spent weekends interviewing long-retired staff, transcribing their memories by hand. And then came the breakthrough. One evening, Mr. Tompkins, an elderly groundskeeper who had worked at Whitestone for over 40 years, handed her an old box. Inside were yellowed photographs, documents, a journal. "This was your mother's," he said quietly. Anna blinked. "You knew her?" "She worked here a long time ago, helped organize the first library catalog system. Never got credit." Anna's throat tightened. "No one ever told me." "Because no one ever asked." That night, Anna sat cross-legged on her bed, thumbing through her mother's journal. Pages filled with neat handwriting, lists of book titles, observations about students, fragments of poetry. One line stood out. "I may not have a plaque on the wall, but I know where every book lives. That's enough." It wasn't. Not anymore. The next week, Anna added her mother's name to the list for the new wing. And with it, a scanned photo of her at a dusty desk, surrounded by books. At the next committee meeting, Anna presented it all: names, stories, photos, even a sample design for the wall. When she finished, the room was quiet. Then Simone said, "Let's make it real." Mrs. Rivera approved the proposal. Hargrave did not comment. But again, it didn't matter. Students began signing a new petition, not just black students, but others. Children of cafeteria workers, immigrant students, anyone who had ever felt invisible. A week later, the board approved the motion unanimously. And so, for the first time in its long history, Whitestone Academy began construction on a new section of the portrait hall. A small plaque was the first to go up. It read, "This wall is for those who walked unseen. May their footsteps echo louder than silence." Anna stood in front of it one afternoon, her father beside her. He wore his uniform. She wore her confidence. "She would have loved this," Joseph said, voice thick. "I hope she hears it," Anna replied. "She does." Students passed by, slower than usual, eyes drawn to the new plaque. No one mocked it. Not this time. Anna watched them go. She hadn't come to Whitestone to be remembered, but now, her mother would be. And that, she realized, was the most powerful echo of all. The morning air in late February held the sharpness of thawing ice, brittle and impatient. Anna walked through the gates of Whitestone Academy with her scarf pulled high, her notebook tucked under one arm. Her steps, once careful, now carried a quiet certainty. The portrait hall had begun to change one plaque, one story at a time, but change outside those walls was slower, more resistant. That week, a reporter from the Charleston Herald requested an interview. Anna was hesitant. She had grown weary of how words could be twisted, how stories could be edited until their meaning served someone else's comfort. But this reporter, a young black woman named Camille Price, had written thoughtfully about racial justice in education. She had followed Anna's journey since the assembly. And she had waited. "I don't want a headline," Camille said in her email. "I want the truth. From your voice." As it happened, Anna agreed. The interview was set to take place in the old school library, beneath the high stained glass windows that filtered in slants of winter sun. Camille arrived with a worn leather satchel and eyes that understood more than they said. She didn't ask for a staged photo. She didn't demand drama. She simply turned on her recorder, nodded, and said, "Whenever you're ready." Anna spoke slowly at first, recounting her early days at Whitestone, the day she first stood in the office, dismissed before she could speak, the smell of floor wax on her father's uniform, the speech, the backlash, the portrait hall. Her mother's journal. Camille listened. No interruptions, just presence. Then came the question that made Anna pause. "Was there ever a moment," Camille asked gently, "when you wanted to leave?" Anna's fingers curled around the edge of her notebook. "Yes," she said, "more than once." "And why didn't you?" Anna exhaled. "Because if I left, nothing would change. And someone else, someone like me, would be told the same lies, that they don't belong, that their story doesn't matter. I stayed because silence felt more dangerous than conflict." Camille leaned forward. "Do you think it's working?" "I think people are listening now. Even if they don't agree, even if it's uncomfortable, that's a start." The interview lasted an hour. When it ended, Camille shook her hand, thanked her sincerely, and promised, "I'll make sure your words stay yours." The story ran the following Sunday. It was titled, "The Girl Who Made Whitestone Listen." It didn't sensationalize. It honored the truth. It quoted her fully. It included a photo not of Anna on a stage, but one of her seated beside her father at the unveiling of the new wall, both of them laughing, eyes bright. The response was swift. Messages poured into the school inbox, some angry, some deeply moved. One came from a woman who had graduated in 1972, the first black girl ever admitted to Whitestone. "I never thought I'd see this day," the message read. "You didn't just open the door, you held it open." But the attention brought new tension. That week, Principal Hargrave called Anna in again. She walked into his office with her shoulders back, her face unreadable. "I assume you've seen the article," he said. "I have," Anna replied. "While I appreciate your commitment to discourse, I do worry that the school's reputation," Anna raised an eyebrow, "is finally becoming honest." Hargrave's mouth pressed into a line. "There are parents threatening to pull donations. Some board members feel this has gone too far." "And what do you feel?" she asked steady. He looked at her for a long moment. "I feel," he said carefully, "that you are not easily intimidated." "That's correct." Hargrave folded his hands. "If you want to continue here, you need to understand the limits of influence." Anna leaned forward. "Respectfully, sir, if you think this is the end of my influence, then you haven't been listening." He blinked. Just once. Anna stood, gathering her notebook. "I won't stop speaking. But I'll keep doing it the way I've always done it, truthfully, calmly, with purpose. You can either support that or be remembered for resisting it." She left without waiting for dismissal. Later that day, Mrs. Rivera found her in the courtyard. "You shook him," she said. Anna smirked faintly. "Good." Rivera hesitated. "You know, when I first started here, I used to eat lunch alone. Because I was the only Latina in admin. They made me feel like a guest." Anna's face softened. "You've changed more than this school's policies," Rivera continued. "You've changed its memory. That matters." Anna nodded, the words soaking in. That evening, back home, Joseph grilled sandwiches while humming to a Marvin Gaye record. Anna sat at the kitchen table, rereading a letter she had received that day, a handwritten note from a teacher in another state, asking to use her story in a lesson plan on courage. Her story. Once something invisible, dismissed. Now something being taught. She folded the letter slowly, holding it like it was more than paper. "Dad," she said softly, "what if this keeps going?" He looked up. "Then keep going with it. But what if it gets harder?" He walked over, placed a sandwich on her plate, and said, "Then it's probably worth doing." Anna smiled. The world hadn't changed overnight. But one girl had stepped into a place where she was never supposed to speak and made it listen. And now, it was beginning to remember her name. March blew in with heavy winds and gray skies. Whitestone Academy, in its stony pride, remained tall and proud. Yet inside its walls, a new tension quietly brewed. As Anna walked through the halls, she felt the air buzz with conversations not spoken aloud. Not yet, but something was coming. It started as a rumor half-whispered between lockers, scribbled on bathroom mirrors in faint dry erase marker. Lock-in protest. Midnight. Main hall. Students only. Anna found the message one Friday afternoon, hidden behind a book on a shelf in the library. She took it to Ellie. "Do you know anything about this?" she asked. Ellie scanned the note and nodded slowly. "Yeah, some students from the junior class are organizing it. They're frustrated. Say Whitestone's changes are cosmetic, that the administration is stalling every proposal." "They're not wrong," Anna said, sitting beside her. "But a lock-in? That's risky. Hargrave will lose his mind." That's the point," Ellie whispered. Anna thought about it that night. At dinner, Joseph talked about a busted boiler in the East Wing and how nobody seemed to care until it flooded an entire hallway. She stirred her soup absent-mindedly. "It's always that way," Joseph said. "No one listens till the ceiling caves in." Anna looked up. What if the students pushed too hard? Then maybe it's time they did. She didn't sleep well. By Saturday, word had spread. The lock-in was set for Sunday night, quietly organized, coordinated through texts and coded social media stories. No faculty had acknowledged it, yet, but Anna knew it was coming to a head. She had a choice: join or stand back. On Sunday afternoon, she stood before the committee during an emergency meeting in the art room. "I'm not asking for us to lead this," she said, "but if we ignore it, we lose credibility." Simone frowned. "It's not sanctioned. They could suspend people." Or worse," added another student. "What if they call parents or police?" Anna stayed quiet for a beat. Then she said, "When Rosa Parks sat down, it wasn't sanctioned either." The room went still. Simone spoke again. "If we go prepared. Peaceful. Clear demands. No destruction. No threats." Anna nodded. Agreed. That night, at 11:52 p.m., nearly 50 students gathered in the main hall. They brought sleeping bags, candles in jars, clipboards, and posters rolled under their arms. Anna arrived just as the clock struck midnight, her face calm, her voice steady. Posters were taped to pillars. "We deserve more than silence. Real change, not PR. History has eyes." They sat cross-legged on the cold marble floor. Phones recorded quiet speeches. Some students recited poetry. Others shared stories, personal accounts of being ignored, harassed, overlooked. One girl wept when she told how no one had helped her after a teacher made a racial joke in class. Anna stood finally, her voice soft but piercing. "This school taught us how to speak with grace, but not how to be heard with truth. Tonight, we're doing both." At 2:17 a.m., the lights flickered. Then came the echoing footsteps. Hargrave entered, flanked by 2 security officers and Mrs. Rivera, her face unreadable. The room held its breath. "Everyone up," Hargrave commanded. "This is not authorized. You're trespassing. Go back to your dorms now." No one moved. Anna stepped forward. "We're not breaking anything. We're not shouting. We're staying until our demands are heard." Hargrave's eyes narrowed. "This will have consequences." Anna lifted a piece of paper. "These are our demands. A fixed timeline for the inclusion curriculum. Transparent records of disciplinary actions related to harassment. Monthly student forums with admin presence. These aren't radical. They're overdue." Rivera took the paper silently. Hargrave looked at the crowd. "You think this is how change works? You think you'll shame this institution into bending?" Anna's chin lifted. "We're not trying to shame it. We're trying to save it." A long pause. Then Rivera spoke, quietly but firmly. "Let them finish the night, safely. I'll stay here." Hargrave's face turned to stone. "This is your call, then?" "No," Rivera replied. "This is theirs." He left without another word. By dawn, the hall was filled with soft snores and candlelight shadows. Students had drifted off to sleep on blankets and books. Anna sat beside Ellie, still awake, eyes fixed on the ceiling. "You think they'll listen now?" Ellie whispered. "They already did," Anna said. "That's why he was angry." On Monday morning, news of the lock-in spread like fire. Photos flooded social media. Hashtags trended. Former students weighed in. Local reporters appeared by noon. By Tuesday, the school board announced a public meeting to address student concerns. Anna was asked to speak. She did, calmly, clearly, without apology. Hargrave did not attend, but Rivera did. So did 3 new faculty members who had remained silent for too long. This time, they voiced support. A week later, Anna returned to the portrait hall. The new section was nearly complete, 8 new plaques, 3 framed photographs, and a space left intentionally blank with a plaque that read, "For the voices yet to come." She stared at it. A seat saved. A promise made. A future forming not in silence, not in fear, but in the sound of young voices echoing through the oldest walls. By the time spring warmed the steps of Whitestone Academy, tulips were blooming in neat rows along the edges of the courtyard. The sting of winter had finally receded, but in its place lingered something new: awareness. Teachers hesitated before dismissing difficult topics. Students spoke with more caution, more curiosity. The silence that had once ruled the school had been cracked, and through that crack, light began to pour. Anna found herself increasingly pulled into the gravity of change. She'd become more than a student now, a symbol, a voice, even when she didn't want to be. But she remained grounded. She walked the same halls, sat at the same worn desk in the library, and returned each evening to the same modest home where her father's work boots still sat by the door. One Thursday morning, Mrs. Rivera intercepted her just outside the language lab. Her face was unreadable. "I need a minute," she said, guiding Anna toward her office. Inside, she handed Anna a cream-colored envelope sealed with a wax stamp. "What is this?" Anna asked. Rivera smiled. "Open it." Anna slipped a finger under the flap and pulled out a letter. Her eyes scanned the heading. United States Department of Education. Office of Civil Rights and Inclusion. She froze. The letter continued. "Dear Miss Anna Johnson, we have followed your courageous efforts and leadership at Whitestone Academy. Your work has not gone unnoticed. In honor of your advocacy for equity in education, we would like to invite you to Washington, D.C., to speak at our annual Youth Inclusion Summit next month. We believe your story and your voice can inspire meaningful national dialogue." Anna's breath caught. "Washington," she whispered. Mrs. Rivera nodded. "They want you to speak to students, educators, leaders from across the country. You'll have 15 minutes. Anna sat down slowly, the letter trembling slightly in her hands. "They said I didn't belong here," she murmured. "And now, you're being asked to represent the future of education," Rivera said, her voice warm. Anna blinked, stunned silent for a long moment. Then she whispered, "I don't even know what to wear." Rivera laughed softly. "We'll figure it out." Word spread fast. Ellie practically burst with pride. Simone and the committee helped Anna prepare, gathering quotes, framing anecdotes, brainstorming structure. Joseph, however, was uncharacteristically quiet. The night before her trip, she found him sitting on the porch, staring at the stars with a quiet expression. "You all right, Dad?" He nodded slowly. I keep thinking about your mother." Anna sat beside him. "I wish she could see this." "She does," he said without hesitation. "Every time you speak, baby girl, I swear I hear her voice in you." She rested her head on his shoulder. "I never wanted any of this," she said softly. "I know, but now that it's here." "You carry it well," Joseph whispered. "Just remember when you speak, you don't have to be anyone else. You've already done the hard part. Now just tell the truth." 2 days later, Anna stood behind the podium in a grand hall in Washington, facing a room filled with rows of educators, policymakers, and students from across the country. Cameras streamed the event live. Her name appeared on a banner overhead. She wore a navy dress, not fancy, but sharp. Her braids were tied back. She gripped the edges of the podium with steady hands. When she spoke, her voice didn't shake. "I come from a place where words were often not enough, where being smart wasn't always safe, where speaking 7 languages didn't protect me from being called too poor, too black, or too much. But I learned something at Whitestone Academy. Silence is not neutrality, and visibility is not power unless we use it." She paused, letting the words settle. "When I arrived at Whitestone, I was nearly turned away at the door, not because of my grades, not because of my effort, but because someone looked at me and assumed I didn't belong. And yet, here I am. Not because I demanded space, but because I built it. She looked up, locking eyes with the room. This isn't just about me. It's about every student who's been told to wait their turn, to speak softly, to be grateful for the scraps of respect handed to them. We deserve more than tolerance. We deserve belief. Applause followed loud, sustained, real. Afterward, officials approached her with compliments, reporters with questions. She answered each one with humility and purpose, always circling back to her message. Justice is not a destination. It's a habit, a practice, a decision made every day. When she returned home, Joseph met her at the bus stop, arms wide, eyes glassy. They stood, she told him. He nodded. I knew they would. Back at Whitestone, a framed photo of Anna at the summit appeared in the main office. Beneath it, a small brass plaque read, Anna Johnson, student, speaker, catalyst. Some students stared at it in silence. Others smiled, but no one ignored it, because Anna's voice had left the room and entered history. April carried with it the smell of fresh grass and possibility. The cherry blossoms lining the main quad at Whitestone burst into delicate clouds of pink and white, and students lingered beneath them during lunch breaks, exchanging laughter and glances beneath their petals. But Anna was restless. Since her return from Washington, she'd felt a shift not in the students or teachers, but in the institution itself. The building held its breath around her now. She could sense it in the way the board meetings paused when she entered, in the whispers behind doors that hushed when she passed. And then it came, an email, short and clinical, from Mrs. Rivera. Subject, urgent, board vote. Anna, there will be a closed-door board vote this Friday regarding changes to the Portrait Hall legacy wall. Several board members are attempting to halt further expansion. It appears your recent visibility has triggered concerns about redefining tradition. I wanted you to know. Rivera. Anna stared at the screen, heart thudding. She had known there would be pushback, there always was. But she had not expected it to come in the form of erasure. The wall wasn't just brick and names. It was memory, reclaimed space, proof of belonging. And they wanted to stop it. Not just pause. Stop. She forwarded the email to Ellie, Simone, and the committee. Within an hour, they were huddled in the student center, voices tense but focused. We can't let them shut it down, Simone said, slapping the table. They'll say it's about tradition, Ellie added. That it's not personal. But it is, Anna said. It's always personal when silence wins. They drafted a response, an open letter. They gathered signatures from students, alumni, even faculty who had once stayed silent. They planned a sit-in at the board office, peaceful, visible, honest. Anna also wrote a private letter to each board member individually. She told them about her mother's journal, about the janitor who kept the school safe at night, about how seeing someone like you on a wall changes what you think is possible. On Friday, the vote took place behind closed doors. Students sat outside the boardroom, lined up along the marble hallway like sentinels. Some read books, others just stared ahead, hands folded in quiet defiance. Anna sat cross-legged, her back against the cold wall, eyes closed. She didn't pray for a miracle. She prayed for courage. An hour passed, then two. Finally, the door creaked open. Mrs. Rivera stepped out, clipboard in hand, her face unreadable. Everyone stood. She looked at Anna and gave a single nod. It passed, she said softly. The expansion will continue. The vote was 6-3 in favor. Cheers erupted. Students hugged. Ellie cried. Simone punched the air. But Anna just stood still, blinking. It passed, she repeated, more to herself than anyone else. The board had listened. Later, Mrs. Rivera pulled her aside. One of the board members told me something after the vote, she said. She said your letter reminded her of her grandmother who cleaned classrooms for decades and never had her name on anything. Anna swallowed hard. Your truth, Rivera added, did what shouting never could. That night, at home, Joseph pulled a dusty photo album from the top shelf of the closet. They sat on the floor, flipping through old photos of her mother sorting books, of a young Joseph sweeping snow off school steps. She always wanted you to know your worth, he said, even when others tried to define it for you. Anna turned the page. It was a photo she'd never seen before. Her mother, standing beside a tiny Anna in pigtails, both smiling in front of the old school gates. She used to whisper to me, Anna said. One day, they'll know your name. Joseph put an arm around her shoulders. They do now, he whispered. But Anna wasn't done. The next morning, she drafted another proposal to create a new leadership scholarship in her mother's name, awarded each year to a student from a working-class family who demonstrates courage and service. She called it the Quiet Strength Award. And this time, when she presented it, no one tried to stop her, because Anna had changed the rules, not by burning the system down, but by refusing to be erased from its story. And the institution, brick by stubborn brick, had begun to learn how to listen. By late April, with the final term approaching, Whitestone Academy had begun to glow in spring's full embrace. The ivy thickened on the stone walls, the lawns were a deep, lush green, and for the first time in years, the air on campus felt alive with more than just prestige, it felt alive with purpose. Anna walked those grounds with a quiet pride, aware that every step she took now echoed with something larger than herself. But change, even when it blooms, carries shadows. It began with a whisper. A custodian named Mr. Dorsey, a quiet man in his 60s who had worked at Whitestone for nearly 40 years, caught Anna in the hallway one evening as she stayed late preparing scholarship documents. Miss Johnson, he said, his eyes darting around. You got a minute? She nodded, sensing the weight in his voice. He led her to the West Wing, a seldom used part of the school where the original structure remained largely untouched. The floorboards creaked, the lights flickered, and the air carried the scent of dust and old wood. Right here, he said, stopping in front of a locked storage door. This used to be part of the servants' quarters. Most folks don't know about it. Wasn't even in the building maps they gave us years back. Anna frowned. What's in there? He handed her an old iron key. Go look. It's time someone saw it. She hesitated, then slid the key into the lock. It turned with a loud click, and the door groaned open. Inside was darkness, but as Anna flicked on her phone flashlight, the beam revealed a small room lined with wooden shelves, dust-covered ledgers, and boxes stacked high. At the far end stood an old filing cabinet, rusted but intact. What is all this? She whispered. Mr. Dorsey stepped inside, pulled out one of the boxes, and opened it. Inside were notebooks, faded photos, letters all labeled with names Anna didn't recognize. These, he said, are records of the black staff who worked here during the segregation years. Groundskeepers, kitchen staff, nannies. None of them ever made it into the official archives. Anna's heart caught. They kept their own records, Dorsey continued. Wrote down what they saw, who they helped, what they were denied. Some of it's hard to read, but it's truth. She knelt and pulled out a leather-bound notebook. The first page read, May 1948, James Alton, grounds crew, paid $0.42, hour, denied access to staff lounge. Page after page, name after name, voice after voice. They were buried, Anna said, her voice cracking. Mr. Dorsey nodded. That's what history does when no one's watching. She stood slowly, the notebook pressed to her chest. This can't stay hidden. He smiled faintly. Didn't think you'd say anything else. Over the next few days, Anna and Ellie cataloged the materials. Simone helped with digitizing. The committee pored over the files late into the evenings. Each discovery made the school's pristine facade feel more fragile, more human. There were love letters written between staff who weren't allowed to marry on campus grounds. A stack of complaint letters, never answered. A drawing made by a janitor's son who dreamed of attending Whitestone drawings that looked eerily like the current layout of the portrait hall. Anna proposed a new project, an exhibit titled Beneath the Floorboards. She pitched it to the administration as a historical installation, a way to honor the unseen legacy of the workers who built and sustained Whitestone for decades without recognition. Hargrave was silent during the presentation. When she finished, he leaned back, steepling his fingers. You're proposing we reveal the school knowingly suppressed these records? I'm proposing we tell the truth, Anna replied. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, I won't stop it, but I won't endorse it either. That's enough, she said. We don't need permission to remember. With Rivera's help, and a grant submitted through alumni funds, the exhibit was approved for the East Gallery, ironically, near the headmaster's wing. The launch was planned for late May. Flyers went up. Media inquiries began trickling in. Students prepared readings. Anna curated a timeline wall, ending with her mother's journal entry beside a plaque reading, "What we don't see, we still feel." On the day of the unveiling, the room was packed. Students, teachers, former staff, and even some board members. Joseph stood near the back, eyes glossy with pride. Anna stood before them all, notebook in hand. "I found these stories under dust and silence," she said, "but they were never truly gone. They waited for someone to listen, for someone to care. Today, we remember not just what was hidden but who we choose to be because of it." She opened the notebook and read aloud. "The 3rd of April, 1952. Agnes Cooper, housekeeper. They say I can't eat at the same table, but I know this school better than they ever will. One day, someone will say my name out loud." Anna looked up. "Agnes, we're saying it now." The room erupted into applause, not loud, but full, deep. The kind of sound that says, "We see you now." Later, as the crowd thinned, Hargrave approached quietly. "I underestimated you," he said. Anna looked at him, steady. "You underestimated the power of truth." He gave a slow nod, then walked away. That night, Anna sat alone in the gallery, staring at the timeline wall. She traced each photo, each name, each note. She wasn't just preserving history, she was rewriting its ending. And for the first time, Whitestone wasn't resisting. It was learning. June arrived with golden mornings and the promise of endings. Whitestone Academy began to wrap itself in the rituals of year's end. Final exams, graduation rehearsals, and the quiet panic of packing dorms. The portrait hall had grown. Beneath the floorboards had become a mandatory stop on school tours. Change no longer whispered. It had found a voice. Yet, Anna kept her focus on finishing strong, quietly dodging attention, content to have done what was necessary. But the world had other plans. It was the morning of the annual Whitestone Honors Assembly, a tradition older than most of the staff. Students gathered in the grand auditorium, polished and prim. Banners lined the walls, gold and white. Parents filled the back rows, murmuring in anticipation. Anna sat with Ellie and Simone near the front, mostly out of obligation. She had no expectation of recognition. That had never been her goal. The Headmaster's Award was the final and most prestigious honor, typically given to a student who exemplified leadership, service, and the Whitestone spirit. In years past, it had gone to student body presidents, legacy scholars, and children of donors. Anna had assumed this year would be no different. As Principal Hargrave took the stage, the lights dimmed slightly, and the murmuring quieted to a hush. Hargrave's voice, clear but restrained, echoed through the room. "Each year, we reserve the final moment of this assembly to recognize one student whose contributions reach beyond academic performance. This student, through their actions, not only reflects our values but challenges us to expand them." Anna shifted slightly in her seat. Hargrave continued. "This year, the faculty committee received nominations from across departments, but there was one name that repeated, again and again, from teachers, from students, from alumni who never met her, but felt her voice." The screen behind him lit up with a single photograph. Anna, standing in front of the Beneath the Floorboards exhibit, holding an open notebook. A quiet gasp moved through the crowd. Anna's hands froze in her lap. "Anna Johnson," Hargrave said, "please join me on stage." For a split second, she didn't move. Then, pushed gently by Ellie's hand, and Simone's whispered, "Go," she rose. The auditorium swelled with applause. Not polite, not obligatory, genuine. Anna walked slowly to the stage. Her heart pounded, not with fear but with the weight of the moment. Hargrave held the microphone in one hand and a small plaque in the other. "In my time as principal, I've rarely witnessed such a transformation, not just in a student, but in a school. Miss Johnson's advocacy has challenged us, pushed us, reminded us that tradition is only honorable when it evolves." He handed her the plaque. The engraved words made her blink twice. "Anna Johnson, 2025 Headmaster's Award, for courage, truth, and legacy." Anna stepped to the mic. She looked out at the sea of faces, some smiling, some surprised, a few tearful. "I wasn't supposed to be here," she began, her voice calm, "not just on this stage but in this building. Some of you remember the day I was almost turned away. I do. I remember every word." A hush fell deeper, but I also remember what happened after. I remember those who listened, those who stood beside me, and those who changed, even when it was hard. She paused. "This award isn't just about me. It's about everyone who was told they didn't belong and showed up anyway. It's about telling the truth, even when your voice shakes. It's about remembering the names that history forgot, and making sure no one else gets erased." Her eyes met Hargrave's for a brief, loaded second. "This school is not perfect," she said, her voice firm, "but it's learning, and that matters." When she stepped down, the applause didn't stop for a full minute. Later, Joseph met her outside, leaning against his old truck with a bouquet of sunflowers. "You," he said, pulling her into a hug, "just rewrote the ending of a very old story." Anna smiled, burying her face in his shoulder. "I didn't expect it. That's what makes it matter," he whispered. That evening, the award sat on the kitchen table. Anna stared at it, then flipped it over. Taped to the back was a note, handwritten and unsigned. "Justice doesn't knock, it waits. And you opened the door. Thank you." Anna folded the note gently, placing it in her notebook beside her mother's old journal. She glanced out the window at the darkening sky, where the first stars blinked into view. The fight wasn't over, but for the first time, the world wasn't pretending it didn't exist. And that, she thought, was enough for now. The week after the award ceremony felt like a strange dream. There were no more late-night committee meetings, no urgent proposals, no whispered strategies behind library shelves. Whitestone's spring term wound down like a symphony drawing to a close. Teachers offered quiet congratulations. Students approached Anna in the halls not with awe, but with respect. Even the ones who had once avoided her now nodded in silent acknowledgement. It felt good, but it also felt unfinished. Anna sat one afternoon beneath the old maple tree in the south courtyard, the same tree she'd cried under on her first day when she thought they wouldn't let her in. Now, she returned to it not in fear but to think, to feel. Simone dropped down beside her, offering a lemonade from the vending machine. "You haven't said much since the award," Simone noted. "I'm not sure what to say," Anna replied. "You won. It wasn't a competition." Simone laughed gently. "You know what I mean. You changed things." Anna took a sip and stared across the courtyard. "I did. But change is quiet now, and I think that scares me more than when it was loud." Simone tilted her head. "Why?" "Because silence can mean two things: progress or retreat." Simone didn't respond right away. Then she said, "Well, you're not the only one who notices. People are still watching." That evening, Anna returned to the East Gallery to check on the Beneath the Floorboards exhibit. She hadn't been there in a few days. Inside, the lights were dim, and the room was empty, except for one figure standing near the far wall. Mrs. Hargrave. Anna froze. She hadn't seen the headmaster's wife since the portrait wall controversy. Mrs. Hargrave had always remained in the background, present at events, polite in conversation, but never involved in the politics of the school. Now, she stood with her arms crossed, gazing at the timeline. Anna approached cautiously. "Mrs. Hargrave?" The woman turned, her face unreadable. "I didn't mean to intrude," Anna said. "You're not intruding," she replied, her voice quiet but sharp. "I came here tonight because I wanted to see what my husband has refused to look at." Anna stayed silent. Mrs. Hargrave pointed to a photograph of a young man in a Whitestone uniform, mopping the floor, his eyes fixed on something outside the frame. "That," she said, "is my uncle, Isaiah Boyd. He worked here for 9 years before being dismissed for speaking out about unfair treatment. I grew up hearing about him. My family called him a troublemaker. I believed them." Anna blinked. "I didn't know he was part of this exhibit," Mrs. Hargrave continued. "Didn't even know he had written letters. But tonight I read one. It said, 'One day, maybe a student will find our names and remind this place that we were here too.'" Anna swallowed the lump rising in her throat. "I'm sorry," she said softly, "that you had to find him like this." Mrs. Hargrave shook her head. "I'm grateful. You did something this school never had the courage to do. You remembered." She paused. My husband, he's proud, but also afraid. Change makes people like him feel like their place in history is being rewritten. But you're not erasing anyone. You're making room. Anna nodded slowly. I don't want revenge. I want truth. Mrs. Hargrave looked at her for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She hugged her. Just briefly. Then she walked away. Alone again in the exhibit, Anna stood in silence. But this silence didn't feel like retreat. It felt like reverence. The next morning, Rivera met her with an envelope. This came for you, she said, handing it over with a small smile. Inside was a formal invitation from the National Education Alliance. They wanted to create a traveling version of the Beneath the Floorboards exhibit, starting with a summer launch in Chicago. Anna's hands trembled as she read it. They want the whole exhibit? She asked. Replicated and expanded, Rivera confirmed. They want you to help curate, speak, lead workshops. Anna looked up. What about Whitestone? We'll keep the original, and we'll make it part of the curriculum moving forward. It's not going anywhere. By that afternoon, the news spread. Emails poured in. Former staff reached out. A retired custodian from Alabama sent a voice message. You did what we couldn't. God bless you, child. And still, Anna remained grounded. Because this wasn't a finish line. It was a handoff. At the final assembly of the school year, she was asked to give a closing speech not as an honoree, not as a representative, but as a student, a peer. She stood once more on the same stage where she had received the headmaster's award. I used to think history was a line, straight, unchanging, but I've learned it's more like a quilt stitched by many hands, some of them trembling, some of them denied thread for far too long. My part was just one patch. Yours might be next. She scanned the audience, students in caps and gowns, younger ones leaning forward in their seats. Speak when it's hard, listen when it's uncomfortable, and never be afraid to dig beneath the floorboards. As the crowd rose in applause, Anna stepped back, letting the moment breathe. She wasn't the girl who had stood at the gates of Whitestone, pleading for a place. She was the young woman who opened the gates for others. And now, the world beyond those gates was waiting. The summer sun was already heavy in the sky when Anna returned to Whitestone Academy one last time. Her backpack was lighter than it had ever been. No books, no files, just a notebook, a pen, and her mother's old scarf tied around one strap. The school stood quiet, in that strange in-between space when classes had ended but the halls still remembered the echo of feet. She walked alone past the West Wing, where the cracked bricks bore the hidden stories she had helped uncover. Past the courtyard, where she'd once sat in tears, convinced she didn't belong. And finally, to the portrait hall. The gallery was silent, but glowing. The latest additions to the wall had been unveiled just the day before. Framed photographs, plaques, and brief biographies of unsung staff members who had once been invisible. Names that had never been spoken aloud in that building were now engraved in brass. And there, near the center of the wall, nestled between a cook and a groundskeeper, was the name Lena Johnson, Archivist of Hope. Anna froze. Her fingers reached out, trembling slightly, brushing the cool metal letters. Rivera had kept it a surprise. Her mother's journal entry was etched beside the name in elegant script. I sweep these floors not for glory, but in the hope that one day, my daughter might walk them with her head held high. Anna blinked back the tears. She hadn't cried through the award, the exhibit launch, or the national invitation. But now, before this quiet tribute, she wept. Not out of sadness, but out of peace. A soft shuffle of footsteps made her turn. Joseph stood at the entrance, cap in hand, his eyes already wet. She made it, he whispered. She always did, Anna said. He came beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. She never wanted fame, just truth. You gave her that. She gave it to me first. They stood there in silence, father and daughter, before a name that once lived only in memory. Later that day, Anna packed the last of her things from the small dorm room that had once felt like a prison. Now, it felt like a chapter she'd finished writing. She tucked away her notes for the national exhibit, zipped up her bag, and headed to the administration office for one last meeting. Hargrave was there, so was Rivera. A few board members sat along the far wall, awkward but attentive. Miss Johnson, Hargrave began, his tone less formal than usual. Before you go, we wanted to, extend a gesture. Anna folded her arms, cautious. We've created a fellowship in your name, Rivera said, stepping forward. The Anna Johnson Fellowship for Educational Equity. It will fund a full scholarship every year for a student from a working-class background, with an interest in leadership and advocacy. Anna's jaw tightened. That's good, she said carefully, as long as it's not just a plaque on a brochure. It's not, Rivera said gently. It's a seed. Anna nodded once. Then thank you for choosing to plant it. As she left the office, Simone and Ellie were waiting outside, grinning wide. You're famous now, Ellie teased, holding up her phone. You're trending again. Anna groaned. Let me disappear for a week, please. You can't, Simone said. Not when the country wants you in Chicago next month. Who? Besides, Ellie added, you're not done. This isn't the end. Anna looked at them and smiled. It's just a different kind of beginning. That evening, a final gathering was held under the old maple tree. Students, staff, and alumni came with food, music, stories, no speeches, just joy. The kind of simple celebration her mother would have loved. As the sun dipped low, casting long golden shadows across the lawn, Anna stood once more. She looked around the people she'd fought beside, the ones who had doubted her and then learned, the ones who hadn't known they were allowed to care until she gave them permission. She reached into her backpack and pulled out the original journal. Her mother's handwriting was faded, but strong. She opened to the last page, where a blank space had always made her wonder. And now, with a pen in hand, Anna wrote, You were right, Mama. I walked with my head high. And now, others will too. The next morning, she left campus for the last time. Not with fear, but with purpose. And as the gates of Whitestone closed gently behind her, Anna Johnson walked into a world that now knew her name and the names of those who came before. Because she had learned that history is not just remembered. It is rewritten, one voice at a time. The story of Anna Johnson teaches us that courage, truth, and persistence can break through even the oldest walls of prejudice. It reminds us that justice often begins with a single voice, daring to speak the truth, and that remembering those who came before us is a powerful form of honoring their legacy. More than anything, it shows that real change doesn't always come through revolution, but through steady, unwavering steps toward dignity and recognition.